Guard has been admirably serving LA throughout recovery. This is the wrong mission and will erode public trust, Newsom says. So it looks like the Newsom administration is at odds with the Trump administration over the use of the California National Guard. Newsom says that the federal government is moving to take over the California National Guard and deploy 2,000 soldiers. We don't know exactly what Newsom means by take over the California National Guard. We'll bring you any more information as we learn more. In the meantime, let's keep listening in to some of the natural sounds from the ground here as this protest activity continues. I should really call this, it's a police response to the protest activity at this point. We're seeing many more officers than we are protesters at this point. Let's keep listening. For those of you just joining us, let me catch you up. There's been a number of federal immigration operations that have taken place in Los Angeles in the past 48 hours. These DHS and ICE operations have led to Angelenos protesting the operations. This is the scene of what once was a protest outside of a Home Depot in the Compton area. Started in Paramount, California, to be precise. The protest escalated. Officers in riot gear were brought in. The protesters were pushed back to the intersection that's in the big box on your screen. A car, we don't know why, but a car was lit on fire. It was recently put out by fire crews. And that's where we stand for now. Sheriff's deputies, Federal Border Patrol police, that's right, Border Patrol police have been on scene. And now we just kind of sit on this shot and we see the remnants of that burned vehicle. We see the police line, which has moved forward. So now police have a little bit more control over that intersection, it seems. This all happening at the intersection of Dale's, the intersection where Dale's Donuts is located, as you can see there in Compton. Some of these ground vantage points, by the way, are simply video journalists who are there on scene, and they're just doing a great job of capturing everything that's been going on. They've been documenting every second of it. We've been hearing the law enforcement voices over the bullhorns. We've been hearing the voices of the protesters. The scene is calmer now than it has been in quite some time. We don't see too many protesters. We don't see too much agitation. We've been seeing flashbangs, fireworks, a new form of pepper spray, basically, that's been deployed to disperse the crowds, has been used as well. Less than lethal rounds have been used to disperse the crowd. You see some of the officers. Let's take that vantage point in full because you can actually see some of those less than lethal pieces of hardware that they use to control the crowds. Back out to our 3-box. Just want to let everybody know that we're keeping on top of this. We appreciate everybody tuning in. This is what we do at Live Now. Whenever there's something breaking, we watch it live, we watch it raw, and we try the best we can to air it without interruption. This is something that we've been on top of now for over 5 hours. Our understanding is that the protest itself, which again kicked off at a Home Depot parking lot in Paramount, California, our understanding is that this has been going on much, much longer than we've had it on air. This started hours before we got on top of it. So I say we've been covering it for 5 hours. The situation itself has been happening for longer than that. We don't like to see any sort of agitation or any sort of escalation. We don't know why those protesters are, they could just be having a conversation with the officers, but we have seen a number of protesters throughout the course of the day who have gotten in officers' faces. A number of people have been detained because of it. Again, things appear to have cooled down for now. We do see one person who is waving around that flag. Take that in full. For now, officers standing by, keeping an eye on the scene, but we can safely say for now, the scene mostly from our vantage point seems calm. Let's keep listening into some of these, some of the voices that are coming through. So I was talking about the idea of officers getting a little bit more control over the intersection, but it does appear that we're seeing a few more protesters walk their way into the area where that car was burning moments ago. They are holding flags. We see news vans. We see a major law enforcement presence, obviously, as this scene has escalated over the course of several hours this afternoon. I'm going to turn the raw audio back up. I'll be back with any more updates as we get them. Hearing more blasts. An ambulance coming from the scene. We've gotten no word if there's been any injuries. We've gotten no word if there's been anybody hospitalized as a result of this. That does not mean that there haven't been any injuries. That just could mean that we haven't gotten any reports of it yet. We have not gotten confirmation. It looks like the chopper may be flying away from the scene. We have a second chopper vantage point that will fill in. We're actually looking at some of those vans. We're wondering why they keep zooming in on the 3. It's likely because they're trying to white balance their camera against the vehicle. For anybody who's just tuning in, you're watching live images. We've got 3 different vantage points of what once was a protest against ICE agents. It's probably going to be a police helicopter that's flying that low. Let's reset. Let's let everybody know how we got here. For those just joining us, this is day 2 of protests in the LA area. Most of the protests spurred by federal law enforcement carrying out immigration enforcement operations within Southern California. It's caused protesters to take to the streets, and ultimately, it's led to the scene that we've been watching now for nearly 6 hours. We've been watching as sheriff's deputies, Border Patrol police have tried to disperse a group of protesters. At this point, this vantage point is the only vantage point that I spot that has any protesters, if these even are protesters. This is the one vantage point I see that may still have a little bit of activity on it. Most of the scenes that we've been following closely all day have pretty much become police investigation scenes at this point. The police tape has been put up over many of these areas. It started in the parking lot of a Home Depot, where federal agents were using that parking lot as pretty much a place where they were staging. Some people caught wind that they were staging there. A group formed eventually of protesters, and that's what kicked off all the activity that's happened since in this area. The live image that you're looking at right now is about a block or 2 over from the Home Depot. It's caused authorities to close Alondra Boulevard, pretty much the portion of Alondra Boulevard that runs over the 710 freeway. Police have not allowed the protesters to get to the exits or on-ramps for the 710, which is just nearby. There it is. There are scenes on both sides of the freeway, I might add. So you see one wall of law enforcement there. I believe the direction that they're pointing in right now is the portion of the scene that's closer to the fire being burned. They're trying to zoom in to see if there are, in fact, any patients inside the ambulance. I couldn't make out anybody from my vantage point. Nonetheless, emergency crews remaining vigilant in case there is the need to help anybody who's injured. There's been a large amount of blasts that we've seen throughout the course of the day. We know that officers have been using less than lethal rounds, including flashbangs, pepper spray. It is hot out there, and these officers have been working for hours. Another vantage point from the ground. This is the very same area near the Home Depot where we saw protesters lining shopping carts up in the middle of the road. They were also lighting fires on the median in the road. We just saw this posted on Truth Social. President Trump and Gavin Newsom, California's governor, they've been having a little bit of back and forth over the use of California's National Guard. This is what Trump just posted. He uses his nickname for Newsom. He says, if Governor Gavin Newsom of California and Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles can't do their jobs, which everyone knows they can't, then the federal government will step in and solve the problem, riots, and looters the way it should be solved. And if any of our amazing producers could, do we have Gavin Newsom's tweet where he was talking about the federal government? There it is. Newsom saying the federal government, and this is, again, Newsom responding to Trump, who wants to use National Guard troops to pretty much calm down some of these more contentious protests that we've been seeing. Newsom saying the federal government is moving to take over the California National Guard and deploy 2,000 soldiers. Take over the California National Guard, he says. We're not entirely sure what that means. Newsom says that move is purposefully inflammatory and will only escalate tensions. He says LA authorities are able to access law enforcement assistance at a moment's notice, and we are in close coordination with the city and county. There's currently no unmet need, Newsom says. I have the full tweet in front of me. It's cut off on the screen. Newsom continues by saying, the Guard has been admirably serving LA throughout recovery. This is the wrong mission and will erode public trust. I'm waiting for more details about what exactly it might mean to take over the California National Guard to deploy 2,000 soldiers. We do know that Trump and Newsom have had some disagreements, no doubt, in the past. They did show some signs of cooperation during the California wildfires. We do know that we are now live on TikTok. For anybody who's joining us there, thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us and you're just getting caught up on what's been happening in Los Angeles, it's been a very, very busy day. We've been covering this protest activity for just around 6 hours now. Fox 11, by the way, saying the Trump administration is poised to send National Guard troops to LA County. Let's go back to our 3-box. This area is roughly situated halfway between downtown LA and Long Beach. You see Seedorf there covering some of the explicit language that was spray painted on his vehicle. At the time he tweeted this, the situation had already been going on for 5 hours. It's now been a few hours since Seedorf sent this tweet out. So we're talking about pretty much an all-day affair here. You see the damage. No doubt this is not going to be the only damaged property in the area. We've seen pieces of the area set on fire. We saw a tire fire at one point. We saw the median and one of these roads set on fire. And that's not to mention the car fire that we saw in the middle of this intersection out by Dale's Donuts in Compton. It looks like the chopper's slowly drifting away. There it goes. That's the car in the middle there. It was set on fire, and we don't exactly know why. Those little blasts of smoke that you're seeing is something that we've been seeing all day as protesters and law enforcement have been clashing with one another, confronting one another. We have seen detainments, both in LA and in New York today. We're covering LA right now. We don't have any live vantage points from New York at the moment. But still to this hour, these are live images, by the way, we continue to see these, whatever you might call them, it's either flashbangs from law enforcement, or in some cases, we've seen fireworks being thrown from protesters toward law enforcement. Now, that car was set on fire in the middle of that intersection. Fire crews eventually did come by. They put the fire out. Ever since then, the scene has somewhat quieted down. We do still see some of the protesters out there. They are sporting Mexican flags, it appears. And there's another group of them down the road, it looks like. We will also show you another vantage point. And again, we don't really have a whole lot of context as to what exactly this is. We just know that we've been watching what appear to be law enforcement officials unloading gear from now a second chopper. We've seen now 2 choppers landing. They're taking some sort of gear off of these choppers. And you see there the police. I believe this is Border Patrol police. Looks like the same uniforms that we saw them wearing earlier in the day. Yeah, Customs and Border Protection. It says there on the chopper. So this is a CBP chopper. We're going to work in the realm of speculation here, but more than likely what's happening here is they're dropping off some resources. We don't know what, but it's possible that we're looking at, this has already been, we don't know how many hours this has been going on for. We've been on air with it for almost 6 hours, but the protest itself has been going on for longer than this. And we don't know how much longer it will go on for. So presumably they need more resources. They might need more tactical equipment. It looks like they're suiting up with some gas masks. That could indicate that we do know that there's been no shortage of that pepper spray used, those pepper canisters that have been used to disperse the crowds at times. Officers wearing these gas masks to protect themselves. One of our experts that came on air and spoke with us earlier today said there's a pretty big risk posed to the people that are out there protesting because these less than lethal rounds may be used on them. There's the rubber bullets, there's the flashbangs, there's the pepper gas. We know that an unlawful assembly was called at a protest last night, and it very well looks like a similar thing has happened today. We've seen people being detained both in Southern California today and in New York. Those of you that are just tuning in didn't see it earlier, but there was also a high-speed chase in the middle of all this that we didn't get the resolution to, by the way, because they traveled into airport airspace, so the chopper had to move away. We've been watching as lots and lots of vehicles and protesters have sported the Mexican flag. Of course, all of this has to do with some of the federal immigration enforcement operations that have been taking place around Southern California. The protesters that have been out here have largely held Mexican flags. And a lot of the protesters that were out here earlier today, I don't see as many protesters 3, 4, 5 hours ago. There were some pretty decent-sized crowds out here a few hours back. But since that car fire started, and since more and more law enforcement have been pouring into this area, we've noticed.
All right, y'all. You can see what's going on here in Los Angeles, California, out here on the West Coast. I thank you all for joining me here on the afternoon, to being a part of this live stream, tapping in and seeing what's going on here. It is crazy in Los Angeles, but I knew this was going to happen. And this is just the start of things, y'all. It's going to get worse because Donald Trump has promised to kick California in its tail, based upon the fact that they don't want to obey his executive orders. They don't want to do what the federal government is instructing them to do. They still want to have boys competing in girls' sports in this state. California deserves to get boot to tail. So as someone who lives in this state, I can't say that I didn't expect it, but it's going to hit hard. I feel for residents of this state, but I know that this is what has to happen in order for corrective action to take place. I thank you all for being here. I thank you all for being a part of the stream and tapping into what's going on the West Coast. This is just the beginning, y'all. It is going to get more and more crazy as time goes on. Thank you for being a part of this.
Over. So I'm going to pull my mic down for a moment. We're just going to keep listening into the natural sounds. That is a police chopper that you're looking at. We'll be with you with any major updates that develop. If any major breaking news does come through, I'll pop my mic up so you can get the latest details. But for now, let's keep listening in to what the cameras are hearing in Compton. If you hear bangs intermittently, we've been hearing those all day. Those are either fireworks or flashbangs from law enforcement. It's tough to say what they are without seeing exactly what's popping off. We are seeing, looks like some people are damaging what appears to be some solar panels on some of the equipment down there. Just a little more damage being done by largely a very small group of protesters within the larger group of people. Most of the day, and this is how it was characterized yesterday, by the way. We were watching these protests, a similar protest scene last night in Los Angeles. We were live on air, just like we are now. And what ended up happening is we learned that a few protesters, a very small amount of protesters within a larger group of protesters, they turned violent. And they threw large pieces of concrete at law enforcement officers. And city officials made a point to say that it's a small group of people that were doing this. What we're looking at live right now, again, appears to be a small group of the bunch that appear to be damaging some of the hardware out there by that gas station. I couldn't tell exactly what that was, but it looked like solar panels. Most of the protesters we've seen today, have been protesting non-combatively. Some of them have been, but most of them have not. Of course, anytime we see people damaging anything on the ground there, it runs the risk of escalation. And as we sit here about 6 hours into this coverage, every time things have escalated, it's been because either some sort of fire was started or protesters were getting up in officers' faces, they were getting confrontational. Those are largely LA sheriff's deputies that you're looking at in the big box on your screen. Let's keep listening into the natural sounds from the ground. Seem to have lost the audio on one of our feeds. What we'll do is we'll see if we can pop up the audio.
Still
on
sits. Also within the last few minutes, those protesters knocking over that.
Yeah, so we're not getting any natural sounds from the ground at this point. What we are hearing seems like some of the reporters down there might be doing some hits for their local news. So we'll stay on top of this. We are going to be tracking this story for a little bit longer. It is almost time for us to head off the air for the evening. I'm Austin Westfall. We appreciate everybody standing by. It looks like we had one of our feeds drop. Let's go out to this one live. Again, a bird's eye view, and that's the biggest group of protesters we've seen in a little bit. So it does appear that what protesters do remain have been moved back quite a ways. We've got a second vantage point showing some of the officers down the road there, or some of the protesters down the road there from the officers. This all happened on Alondra Boulevard. You see the street sign there. It was the intersection of Alondra and Atlantic, where a vehicle fire was started in the middle of these protests. You can see the charred vehicle on the left-hand portion of your screen. It still sits there dormant. Lots and lots of protesters still standing at this intersection from the sidelines, as are all of these law enforcement officers. These are largely sheriff's deputies. We've also seen a number of police officers from CBP on scene as well. We've seen a number of people being detained throughout the day. We've been on top of this now for around 6 hours. And it looks like we're actually seeing some traffic moving through the intersection. Let's go back out to our 3-box. Let's see if we can hear anything now.
AJ, that was hilarious. Y'all think the Epstein files are in that car? AJ, you crazy.
So it wasn't too long ago that we were listening into the live audio, and we were hearing commands from law enforcement telling protesters to disperse or else less than lethal rounds would be used on them. Throughout the course of the day, we've seen smoke grenades being used, flashbangs. We had law enforcement experts on our air earlier today who said that any protester who chooses to come out to this scene is putting themselves in danger because police will be using those less than lethal rounds if they need to. Law enforcement in the area have been asking this crowd to disperse now for the majority of the day. They've pushed the protesters back slowly but surely, but still, we still see a number of protesters remaining on scene, although from a distance. At this point, the natural sounds that we hear are largely the ambient noises of choppers flying, circling around the scene. We haven't really been hearing the police commands anymore. We did just hear from LA Mayor Karen Bass, though. She posted this on X. It gets cut off on the screen, but I have the full thing in front of me. I'm going to read it. She says, "This is a difficult time for our city as we recover from an unprecedented natural disaster. Many in our community are feeling fear following recent federal immigration enforcement actions across Los Angeles County. Reports of unrest outside the city, including in Paramount, are deeply concerning. We've been in direct contact with officials in Washington, D.C., and are working closely with law enforcement to find the best path forward. Everyone has the right to peacefully protest, but let me be clear. Violence and destruction are unacceptable," she says, "and those responsible will be held accountable." Back to our 3-box, where we continue to monitor the scene. LA's mayor, echoing something we've heard from every official, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. Mayor Bass says everyone has the right to peacefully protest, but let me be clear, violence and destruction are unacceptable. Those responsible will be held accountable. We saw some people damaging some of the equipment at one of the gas stations nearby. We've seen fires being set in the medians of these roads. We saw a tire fire earlier today. And of course, we saw a vehicle fire in the middle of this intersection that we've been staring at for the past few hours now. We don't know how many people have been detained, but we have seen people getting detained in Paramount and in Compton today. What charges they face, we don't know yet. Time will tell. Hopefully we'll hear from either the news wires or from Fox 11 LA shortly about how many people have been arrested and what charges they face. Also unclear at this point is if anybody's been injured as a result of these protests. We did see at least one ambulance leaving the scene, but we couldn't quite tell if they were leaving the scene to go to another situation, perhaps. We didn't see anybody being carted into the ambulance from this scene. All of this taking place in an area of Southern California, not too far away from I was going to say not too far away from Compton, but really, this live vantage point that we're looking at near Dane's Donuts is in Compton proper. If you go over the 710, then that's where you get into Paramount, California. So it's a bit confusing. We've got two separate scenes separated by only a freeway. These two scenes are only about a block or two away from each other, and a freeway is what separates them. And technically, it's two different communities. This all started in Paramount by a Home Depot, and now the majority of the action seems to have shifted over the 710 into Compton by this donut shop, and that's where we continue to see these intermittent blasts to this hour. Looks like we're getting in some new reporting from Fox's Bill Malugin. I'm going to read this out. Again, this is another lengthy post on Twitter. It gets cut off on your screen, but I have the full thing in front of me. I'm going to read it. He says federal sources ID some of the criminal illegal alien targets ICE arrested in their LA operation yesterday and today, Malugin says, which sparked violent protests. They include multiple gang members, convicted sex offenders, violent gun offenders, and drug offenders. One has already been deported. He says they include, and then he goes on to describe 4 different people. I won't name all of the people, but I will read some of the allegations, some of the charges made against some of these people. One person is a national of the Philippines who has prior convictions for sexual penetration with a foreign object, assault with intent to commit rape, and burglary. Another person is a Mexican national and known gang member with a conviction for sexual battery, receiving stolen property, and theft in LA. Another person is a previously deported Mexican national and known gang member with convictions for assault with a deadly weapon and possessing drug paraphernalia. And a fourth person is a Mexican national with a conviction for assault with a deadly weapon causing great bodily injury in Los Angeles. So again, Bill Malugin saying that federal sources have ID'd some of the criminal illegal targets that have been arrested in their operations today and yesterday in Southern California. These are some of the raids that sparked these protests. He says they include multiple gang members, convicted sex offenders, violent gun offenders, and drug offenders. He says one of them has already been deported. Back to our triple box. As we continue to keep an eye on this situation, I'm going to mute myself for a moment. I'm going to let you watch the scene. It looks relatively calm for now. We even see some traffic, bizarrely enough, moving through the intersection with the charred car in the middle of it. You still see some of those flags that the protesters have been waving all day. I'll bring my audio back up if there's any updates that come through.
Thank you, Susan, for recognizing that I've been reporting on the issues in California for some time. We have a rogue governor who is in opposition to the president of the United States. It's going to get spicy here on the West Coast. Pray for us, y'all, because in order for corrective action to take place in California, we gonna need these politicians to get stomped out, which is going to hurt the populace of this state. Many people have left the state going to other places like Texas and Florida. Y'all saying, don't California my Texas. Don't California my Florida. We understand how you feel. But people are running from this state because the government is out of control in this one-party state. Y'all keep California in prayer and understand that not everyone in this state feels the way that people want you to think they feel. They want you to think that California is all about leftists and radicals and crazy folks. No, most people in California that I have come across feel the same way I feel about this state, that it is mismanaged and it needs new leadership in order to bring it back to its prominence, not only in the country's stage, but on the world stage. We need some help. We need some change. And maybe Donald Trump can put the constraints on this state that it needs in order to have corrective action take place in California. Y'all pray for us. We out here dealing with it in a one-party state where most people in this state that I've come across disagree with the government, but things have been put in place to put these Democrats in power where people who feel differently are silenced or snuffed out. And things like this are going to continue in California.
Anna, can I get the keys again? Anna, can I get the keys again?
So it looks like we might have had a feed switch on us in real time. We're actually not sure where that's coming from. We just got this in. I see a Palestinian flag. I see a Mexican flag. This is likely Los Angeles. It looks like it, at least. It might just be a different vantage point of the exact same scene that we've been looking at. But that's just sort of how this thing goes sometimes. It might sound kind of bizarre to the audience watching at home, but yes, we do get live feeds in often without knowing exactly what we're looking at. And they did just switch one of our feeds up on us. So we do have another ground vantage point, it appears, of a group of protesters that have gathered. Not exactly sure where this is, but it appears to be in Los Angeles. It looks like Los Angeles. Yeah, that's a LA Metro bus right there. So let's keep an eye on this as well. We still have the vantage point that we have been watching for much of the day. This is where it all started, by the way. This is the area right outside of the Home Depot in Paramount, California. Protesters originally took to this intersection. They were even lighting some fires in the median that you can see there, not too far away from some of those art pieces that are seen off the road. This is where the majority of law enforcement are at this hour, though. The intersection of, and again, it's just kind of perplexing watching the traffic, everyday traffic moving through past this completely charred vehicle at the intersection of Atlantic Avenue and Alondra Boulevard. East Alondra Boulevard is where all of this has been taking place today. The live image that you're looking at right now is, and you might be able to tell by the big donut on your screen, there's a donut shop right on this intersection called Dale's Donuts. We've been watching as protesters originally took over this intersection. There were protesters filling these streets. Eventually, one of them lit a car on fire. It took some time, but eventually fire crews caught up to the fire. They doused it. And now police sit at the edge of the intersection. Protesters still remain on scene. Let's go back to our triple box, including our new vantage point that came in from the ground somewhere in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, we don't have an exact location. We don't have contact with the video journalist that's bringing us this feed. But again, we're going to stay on top of this, and we're going to keep listening in to what the video cameras are hearing on the ground. Let's keep listening.
this exact location.
Oh, the TV voice are talking. This is great.
We wrote on the board. We wrote on the board. United will never be defeated. Track.
So we see some sparklers, fireworks, whatever you might want to call them. We've been watching fireworks all day. This is something that the protesters have been using. Some cases, they've been throwing the fireworks at law enforcement. So we sit here in hour 6 of our coverage, and still no signs of this scene slowing down. I'm curious if we go to one of these ground vantage point shots, if we can hear the popping. No, not really. It is about time for us to go off the air for the day. This is a story, no doubt, that Fox LA is going to stay on top of. One thing I do want to play out before we get off the air, since all of this has to do with federal law enforcement, federal immigration enforcement agents, and some of the immigration enforcement operations that have been taking place in Southern California. Well, Tom Homan is President Trump's border czar. He joined Fox News earlier today. He actually spoke a little bit about what was happening in Los Angeles today. Let's listen into Homan from this afternoon.
Responding to these protests, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Look, we're going to continue doing our job. And yesterday, we had 118 arrests. I was out here yesterday to kick off this operation. And what people aren't talking about is I served, several warrants yesterday. These were criminal warrants. This is a criminal investigation. And today, we're continuing operations. They're not going to shut us down. We're out there right now doing operations. We're going to keep doing operations. We brought in more resources to push back the protesters, but I'll say it again, a serious warning. You can protest all you want. You got your First Amendment rights. But if you cross that line of impediment, or you're putting hands on officers or destroy property, you will be prosecuted. There's zero tolerance on crossing that lines, and that's what we're standing by. We're bringing more resources as we speak. We'll have more resources tonight. We're going to continue doing the job that American people voted Donald Trump in office to do, and we're not going to apologize for doing it.
Tom, it's Alicia Acuna. Again, thank you so much for being here. During the protest yesterday, a Los Angeles City Council member called for mobilization against ICE. Listen.
They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing tactics, because community defense works and our resistance has slowed them down before. And if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we got to show up even stronger.
So, Tom, will the Trump administration take action against these public officials who are threatening ICE agents with resistance?
Absolutely. And I think Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice is looking at that. And, like I said many times, these elected officials or these non-government organizations, they can't cross the line either. I mean, we got people like, Hakeem Jeffries saying he's going to dox ICE employees. ICE agents out there with masks on. They're wearing masks to protect themselves and their families because they've been doxxed, their families been doxxed, their life's been threatened, their families have been threatened. I know myself, I had over 1,000 protesters at my house. I expect that as the borders are, but these men and women are putting their lives online every day. They arrested a lot of bad people yesterday and today. They arrested child sex offenders. They arrested people convicted of robbery. They arrested public safety, not only significant public safety threats, but national security threats. They arrested gang members. We're making Los Angeles safer. And Mayor Bass ought to be thanking us for making her city safer. And the term migrant, as Joe Concha rightfully said earlier, they're illegal aliens. There are illegal aliens in this country, and we welcome. We're the most giving country in the world. But these are illegal aliens who committed a crime by crossing this border illegally, then yet committed another crime. Again, yesterday's about a criminal investigation into money laundering, tax evasion, and some of the funds going to cartels in Mexico and Colombia that fund their operations of sending narcotics to this country, killing American people. This is about enforcing the law. And again, we're not going to apologize for doing it. We're stepping up. She says they're going to mobilize. Well, guess what? We're already ahead of the game. We're already mobilizing. We're going to bring National Guard in tonight. We're going to continue doing our job. We're going to push back on these people, and we're going to enforce the law.
Tom, it's Lydia Hu, and I want to ask you.
So, anytime we hear some of those voices, especially from people that are in a position of power, we always want to bring that to you to lend some context to what's taking place during these breaking news times. It does appear that the chopper is flying away from this scene for now. What I'm going to do is we're going to end our coverage here on Live Now. It is about time for us to go off the air for the evening as Fox 11 flies away from the scene. I'll recommend for anybody who wants to stay up to date on anything that's going on, you can read updates, presumably all night, from our fantastic crew of journalists at Fox 11 Los Angeles. FoxLA.com would be a great place. Oh, look at that. We see a helicopter flying away from the White House in real time. Don't see that every day. As I said, it is that time of night for us to get off the air. I'm Austin Westfall. We thank you all for sticking with us.
And I thank you all for being a part of this live stream and participating in the chat, sharing one unto another. I'm just trying to let you know what's going on the West Coast under this Trump administration as they try to get rid of people who don't belong in this country, people who have no right to be here, people who were let into this country under the Biden administration illegally, in my opinion. But as the Trump administration tries to rectify the situation and get them out of our country, they are going to face resistance, as you have seen in this video. I thank you all for being here. I thank you all for being a part of this live stream. I thank you all for participating in what I have brought to you today. I love you all to life. Stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you share this live. Like the video so that we can fight against this algorithm. Make sure you like the stream, share the stream on all of your social media platforms. That will help us out in a real way as we try to fight against what's going on them folks platform. I love you all to life. Thank you all for being here and sharing this with me. I hope you have been informed, especially those of you who don't live on the West Coast. I hope you have been informed about what's going on out here, because this just marks the beginning of what's going to be a tumultuous summer, y'all. It's going to get crazy out here as Donald Trump attempts to cut federal funding for California. It is exactly what the management and the government of this state needs, because they seem like they don't want to learn their lesson. Well, Donald Trump, do what you got to do, sir. It's going to hurt me and the citizenry of this state, but we understand it's something that is necessary, because the people in control, the people in power, need to learn their lesson. I love y'all to life. Thank you for being here. I love you. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next one.